A black panther's golden-green eyes, shining in moonlight, searched the darkness of the alpine forest, damp from rain, sleet and snow melt. Following a pulsating will no other creature could see. It was the mate bond, known from birth, felt awakened at 18 and lit, when her mate finally came within 250 miles of her. Like lightning the shockwave pulsed in her and now she was compelled to drop everything to find him. She had been teaching when it hit, art sales and branding for college art students who were just beginning their career, and she could not stop. Her students depended on her teaching for more than just grades. Every student in this class of 13 had been carefully selected as artist entrepreneurs, freelancing and already attempting to make a name for themselves. Jamie wanted to be an epic fantasy cover designer and to do series art, and Brad was more into wildlife and landscape painting hyperrealism. Jessica did charcoal drawings of farm life, fishing and hunting, including people in the rural lifestyle, but most of the rest needed more guidance. They were not as far along in their careers or even in the type of art they favored. They had all noticed when she paused mid-sentence and stood open-mouthed at the front of the room, a minute that had felt like an eternity passed, and then as her mind returned there was a chorus of,
"Are you all right?"
and
"What's wrong?"
"Are you having a heart attack?"
None of those things. She was healthy as a horse, to use the worn-out trope. She told them she was fine, but had to resume teaching to prove it to them, going back to finishing what she had been saying, before they stopped asking questions about her health and well-being. That was 6 hours ago. She taught them for 4 more hours, sending them away with extra homework to make up for the 2 hours early she released them from school studies. Luckily it was the weekend, because now she was the Panther, racing to the edge of her vast territory. She had a range of 250 miles straight north of the college all the way to 260 miles southeast and 300 miles southwest. Other cats claimed territory within her shared range. Friends. Cats are social creatures, though they are often seen as aloof, and frequently misunderstood. She wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but she had the most endurance, which made her leader by unlucky default. Leader wasn't a title sought after. It came with responsibility to run the length of the territory range, a distance of over 1,500 miles, every week, checking and scent marking its borders. At a top speed of 32 miles per hour, it was an unpaid full-time job. On top of her 6 hours teaching 5 days a week, she had no time to spare to hunt a mate. But when the bond lit, and in the northwest section where she was patrolling tonight anyway, well, she decided to give herself 2 extra hours to investigate. After a 2-hour drive headed straight for the northwest camp she had booked for every weekend now until St. Paddy's Day to park her car and pitch a tent she never used, to keep appearances, she undressed and put her loose clothes in the bag she had designed to fit her panther form and hung it so she could step into it when she was transformed. And now she was tracking her mate through the bond only she could feel. With panthers it was the female that felt the bond, and though it would only solidify with one, the one she ultimately chose, any male with the potential to fill her needs and specific tastes and desires could trigger the bond. Rarely would it ever be triggered by more than one potential at a time, but sometimes when a courtship was going poorly a new potential would light up. It had been years since she rejected the last potential, forcefully snuffed out the light because he had decided playing army with the boys and finding exotic women in every country was more fun than discovering new depth of connection with her. Now another potential was in her territory range to the north. The scent of dogs not far from him, and she wanted to know why. Potential mate or not, if he didn't have a damn good reason to be in her range she would send him out. And if he was leading dogs to her home she would kill him. Now as she was getting closer, wolf scent was in the air thicker than usual, which meant possible trouble, and for that she would call Ryan, the strongest Iluran in her clan. A large puma mountain lion shifter with a massive build to drive away the wolves back to their territory on the other side of the river. If cats had the social hierarchy of wolves, he would have been her second, and a sense of duty and nothing more than the honor of being second in command would be payment enough. Iluran had a different way. They contributed from an individualist perspective, trading favors equally, no one person better than another except in ability to excel, in tests of strength, endurance, speed, caring, and any of a long list of desirable traits. A social butterfly's ability to be well-liked and barter favors could place an otherwise fat, weak tomcat shifter in a leadership role. A distant cousin in the city had done it, posing as a pet for an entire well-to-do neighborhood, and got intel that allowed them to negotiate highly favorable jobs for several big cats on the border in exchange for a portion of their hunts every month. He was good for a pet cat and every bit the type of overweight house cat he posed as, despite the high metabolisms every shifter possessed. Her leadership depended more on her endurance and the ability to patrol across 3 of the ranges of cats in her group in one night, and still go to work in the morning. The parkland that they wanted to remain wild required funding that every shifter she knew took jobs and donated as much as they could to keep their land wild and free. The stench of wolf was so strong now she had lost the thread of her potential mate. It should not be this strong so far from the border. A wolf had crossed her range. She heard a rustle from the bushes and she hissed, then let out a mighty yowl meant to draw the attention of whichever of her associates were near and signal to call Ryan to her aid. He would demand a price without a doubt. Every cat always did, but Ryan was fair and reasonable, so she wasn't worried what it might be. More than likely he just wanted someone to cook for him and clean his laundry, things males of any species rarely liked or made the time to do for themselves. The price of male strength, she supposed. A twig snapped and she caught sight of a white wolf, large and muscular, running back into denser woods, disappearing from sight. The scent she picked up from him was somehow less offensive than other wolves. It smelled clean. Like this wolf valued cleanliness above all else. A hint of pine and hickory that made her mouth water with a sudden craving for salmon, her favorite food. If he was running from her, perhaps he was not the threat his massive form suggested. She took up the chase recklessly, not thinking of being led into a trap, only thinking this predator acted like prey, running like it was a game. Her cat senses urged her to play. Chase, pounce, dart, pounce again. All cats enjoyed toying with prey in this fashion. Only ending the torture when the mouse was beyond trying to escape. When the spirit was broken and had consented to death. It was a cat's way. Offering every opportunity for escape, for the will to live to outpower the cat's need to eat. Sometimes they lost a meal, but a strong spirit in prey not caught could produce more offspring and feed the hungry cat longer term. As she ran after the wolf, she found herself purring with pleasure. She had not had a hunt like this before, where she was on almost equal terms with her quarry. Every hunt aside from her training years had always been with the odds stacked in her favor. She was more nimble, had more endurance, more cunning, stealth, and sometimes even more speed than her prey. This was different. The white wolf was leading her, even without knowing the terrain as she did, to a place that put the odds in their favor. He was disguising their trail to slow her down. To her delight, it was working. The challenge thrilled her in ways she'd never experienced. Just before the waterfall caves of the northeast border, she completely lost the scent of them. She circled the clearing several times. It was useless and they had disappeared completely. She was at her usual evening camp, and though she was not at all tired, this was the easiest spot to meet Ryan for negotiating the terms of dealing with a border breach. Cats never allowed dogs to trespass without consequence. Intending on taking a quick bath in the pool beneath the waterfall, she shifted back to human form as the adrenaline left her frame. Suddenly, now in human form, she could again sense the potential bond coming from the cave she was planning to use as camp when Ryan came. Cats enjoyed privacy, and this cave, though not on her side of the creek, was neutral territory. A rock passing at the mouth of the pool led around to the cave behind the waterfall on a narrow path through briars. She dressed quickly, opting for the human form to not scare him right away and for easy communication. It was a 10-minute walk in human form and she could already smell fire. Maybe that's why the wolf scent ended at the water's edge, using her potential scent to confuse her. If they went under and shifted, she couldn't track one human from another, at least not easily. Not without knowing the human scent of the shifters. So she set to the far more interesting task of investigating the potential mate bond that illuminated her path. Not that her cat-like eyes needed it. She had been down this trail enough, she could walk it blind anyway. She kept the Panther on the surface, aware that in human form she was defenseless against any human that meant her harm, and against the wolf still lingering somewhere she couldn't pinpoint direction. As she ducked under the cliff face, veering out far above tiny streams of water, falling down its south side and rounded the end where the cave opened to the east, the calm flow falling ahead of her and splashing steam like spray from the force of water hitting the cool pond. She saw him standing by the fire, his back to her, in nothing but faint blue silk boxers, one hand in the pocket, the other casually roasting 2 marshmallows on a forked stick.
"Want one?"
he asked in the most sexy rough voice she'd ever heard without even glancing back at her. He was obviously a chauffeur, but with the waterfall to his right spraying over his scent, she could not tell which kind, and worse, she could smell dogs, wolves, everywhere, the smell so strong she could taste. Her heart raced with anxious anticipation of seeing wolves, and the threat of possibility that this potential he might be connected to them, or worse in danger because of them, and she had no idea what to do. She sniffed the air again. He stepped around the fire, turning and put his back to the falls, suddenly smelling more human, making her question if he was even worth being on the wrong side of her range for. She would never choose a human, ever. She could not protect them, and unless they had some powerful magic, they wouldn't even live half as long as she would. Human males without magic lived even shorter lives.